Hi, welcome to Living Title IX with Betsy. That's me. This week we are continuing our discussion on smooth transitions. This is the third in our four-part series on smooth transitions. And so one thing that I want to recap, if we're going to go back a couple of episodes, we started with the smooth transition from report to Title IX coordinator. And then last week we talked through Title IX coordinator to investigator, or up until we get to investigator, and setting them up for success. And now we're going to talk about that intake with an investigator, that first meeting with an investigator, through the handoff, a warm handoff to our decision maker. So let's let's just jump into that first meeting with our investigator. The smoothest of transitions would be that our coordinator is there. Again, reminder, if our coordinator is not the same as our investigator, our coordinator is in that first meeting to say, hey, I just wanted to be here to make sure that we have this introduction so that you know that I work well with this investigator and they are here to make sure that they're getting the most information from you so that they can move into the review phases, which they're going to talk about for you, and get to a determination by our decision maker. So setting that stage for them about what's going to happen, showing that trust and communication that is happening between the coordinator and the investigator. Now, I know that your plates are exceptionally full, and sometimes we can't make that interaction happen with both in that same meeting, at least to start it off. But what we can do otherwise is send that nice email that says, as a reminder, the investigator assigned to your case is, and we'll use me for an example, Betsy Smith, and she works with Institutional Compliance Solutions. For you, you may say she works in the Office of Equity and Inclusion, or she works in the Title IX office, or she is an assistant principal, or whatever her role or his role might be. So setting that up with, this is who they are, this is a connection to let you know that they've been assigned, this is how you're going to communicate with them, and this is how they will be communicating with you. Dropping in the email that it'll be coming from, or even copying them on the email and letting the parties know this individual is copied on this email so that they have that and can make sure that they're able to communicate, let them know what the phone number for the investigator is, how they're going to get a hold of them if something comes up. And then also making sure that the parties or the individuals that you're going to meet with are completely aware of what that next step will be, when they'll hear from them, when the parties will hear from the investigator. Let me be really clear about that, and what the time frame is going to look like and what the investigator may be asking for in that meeting. So it's always nice to hear it from the coordinator to the parties before or at the start of the investigation as well. Investigator, if you're just getting a handoff, we want you to have that conversation too. And regardless, every time you're meeting with someone, you're explaining what's your process, what's your role, who are you, having those conversational startups to build that rapport. But then also really being clear about what's your role. And when I think about that, I want you to separate that into kind of three really distinct pieces. So your first piece is your gathering of information. And so what does that look like? And what are you asking for the parties there, or from the parties as it relates to that? And then really getting specific with them and transitioning this throughout. You're going to give an overview, and then as you're transitioning to the next phase, which would be evidence review, I want you to talk with them about that. What is the point of evidence review, right? We may say it's an extra burden on us as Title IX coordinators, Title IX investigators, but it's really that time for the parties to say, hey, this is what is wrong in the evidence that you have, or this is what's not included, or, oh, I forgot to tell you this thing, right? Like that's their opportunity to have a first review of the information and say, hey, you need to do this other thing, or I think I asked you to do that, but you didn't. Or maybe even, oh, I see that this other party in the notes has said this. I want you to go back and ask some more questions about it. We are taking the information from them in that, from the parties in that review period. So we really want to explain the why behind it. And the transitions as we move through are much smoother if we're explaining the why. And so after we've done that, we're going to write that report or draft that report. And we're going to explain to them, what's the point of this report? Well, the report is a summary. It's a roadmap for your decision maker. And we really want them to know, hey, this is kind of not everything, but a summary of what is relevant and what we've considered relevant. And in your review, if there's something that's missing from that, you let me know that you think it's relevant. And as an investigator, I'll decide, and it'll be noted for the decision maker who ultimately makes the final determination on relevancy pieces. So just setting them up with the why we're doing this and why their input is important in each of those phases. That creates a smooth transition into the decision-making phase. For K-12s, it's the Q&A, which I think is the hardest, and it's the hardest to explain at least. And then the hearing for our higher ed folks. So we want you to think through how you're going to transition that last little piece from the report review to the decision makers. And so we have to be really clear with the parties. This is who it's going to be handed off to, whether that's a panel if you're higher ed or another administrator or an external provider. Who is it? And why should they trust that that person's going to get it right? Well, this decision maker is also a check on me as an investigator, right? So we want to be clear about that. They're going to review it, and if they have any questions, they're going to let me know. If they have questions, they're going to let you know. If it's in the Q&A phase, they may ask you some questions. If it's in the higher ed hearing officer phase, like setting up the stage so that the decision makers are not having these individuals coming in completely confused about what that process is going to look like. So investigators, we are helping that smooth transition to a really great decision-making process or resolution process. Again, thinking through this in your specific role as coordinator, as investigator, as decision maker, what do you want it to feel like when that case makes its way to you or when those parties make their way to you? And so having the conversation and drafting the emails and preparing all of that on the front end so that we're really clear with our bullet points, with our flow charts and all of those pieces. And we definitely don't want to be talking trash about the next person that it's getting handed off to. So we don't ever want our investigators rolling their eyes about who might be serving in a decision maker role, especially in front of our parties. We have to make them know and understand that this is a trusted process and that these individuals are absolutely trusted. So I think that's all I have on this, at least until we get to the final stage of decision making, getting into that decision maker, and then that pass off to appeal. And maybe I'll even add in a little bit of sneak information about informal resolutions as we continue on to that last session as well. So awesome. I hope you're having a great week. I hope that you are laughing a lot. Smiles are super important, and laughing at the fails that we have, laughing at the awesome things that are happening. Do something to make someone smile today. It will make your day better. It will make their day better, I promise. And then supporting each other, pat on the back, high fives, whatever it might be, make sure that you're doing that. And then celebrating those small victories because they're sometimes hard to come by and sometimes hard to notice. So celebrate the small victories. For me this week, it is that I have been able to spend a good bit of time at home. And I am so glad about that. I've been able to get a lot of stuff knocked off my to-do list, both personally and professionally, that I hadn't been able to get to. And I'm so excited for that. And I'm so excited what that means for you all in the future is lots more trainings that are coming. There is an update and a refresh to Title IX University for our community partners. So that is all coming out soon. And I've been busting it along with the rest of our team to make sure that we're getting the best content to you all possible. So if you're not a community partner, let us know. And we would love to have you join. Finally, I skipped this just a second ago, but here's our amazing Mug Club member this week. We want you to hashtag mugshot on any of the platforms. Also like, share, follow, comment, all of that stuff that you know that you want your content to get. Please do that for us as well. And that'll make sure that it's showing up in your feed so that you can catch Living Title IX every single week because we love to see you. So have an awesome one and we'll chat soon. Bye.